The Mayo Experience.
That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by Underdog, the Arnold Palmer Invitational DraftKings picks, the weather splits, tee times, final bets, one and done, and all the strategy you need to get you going forward this week. A reminder to all of you, you smash the like while you're here. You sub to Mayo Media Network, and after the live has concluded, and we are live every single Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern time, breaking down golf, except last week, Tambo, because I wasn't here, right?
That's right. You were finally enjoying some time off, correct?
I did one show. I was pretty sick when I did it with Jeff, and I was thinking about doing it with you. I was like, I can't even get access to DraftKings where I'm at. I can't play any daily fantasy. I was like, oh, I'll do an underdog draft. This will be great. I'm like, no, can't even get on Underdog from where I was at. It was like, it's the first week in a while. I'll have like 3 bets on the go and just kind of kick it back and see what happens. Obviously, I didn't win, but I lost a lot less money than I normally do on a given week.
No Joe Highsmith outright?
No, it was like Kirshner and Drew Matthews. That was it. And Raza.
There you go. So you missed the boat on that one, but we're back and we got a good little run here. Got a signature event this week, the Players next week. So yeah, I'm excited for this. The Florida Swings kicked off. We're good to roll, and we got some good events now.
Yeah, so sub to Mayo Media Network. We are almost at 50,000 subs. We need your help for that. And then after the show, in the comment section on Spotify or on Apple in the review section, please give me your single favorite play below $7,000 this week on DraftKings. And I told you today I'd be giving out a winner for a free year of FantasyNational.com, and I have that winner in front of me. The YouTube commenter at the Bronze, BRONZ, is the winner. So if you want to tweet at me at the PME or email in at mayomediainc@gmail.com, get you hooked up. No problem. All right. Thanks for that. Appreciate everyone's support. Let's talk about the weather. That's the first thing that I mean, it's going to be the big talking point of today. I think for the week when people are constructing lineups or even making outright bets, I wrote up in the column that I put out in the newsletter and on X on Monday, you really don't want to heavily invest in this tournament until you get a good sense of what's happening with the weather. I'm looking at Wednesday right now, and it's cold and it's windy in the morning, and then it's slightly warmer in the afternoon and slightly less windy, but it's not like they're going to get a break from the wind at any point.
Yeah, we were looking at it just pre-show and breaking it down again. I mean, it is interesting, especially when we get to DraftKings later on. There is a real split, like the difference in some of these tee times of what they're going off could be, 4 or 5 hours apart in some cases, just for particular ranges. And then it is pretty split evenly. I don't know why they did this, but there's 40 golfers go out in the morning, 32 in the afternoon. But the setup of it right now is like a pretty even split when we get to DraftKings for people that play in the morning versus have a afternoon or later tee time on Thursday.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out the best way to take advantage of this, because the course is playing hard. And even when I go to Underdog right now, I'm taking a look at what everyone is being listed for scores for the day. And they're not great. Like the lowest score, like the lowest higher lower that you can play is Scheffler. And Scheffler's is 70. That's 2 under. It's the lowest one you can play. So Underdog is expecting that the scores are going to be pretty high at least on Thursday.
Yeah, I think it would be the case. It looks that way for sure. We haven't really got too much of this season so far, but we're talking, upwards of 16, 17 sustained, gusts 30 to 35, things like that. So I think right now it's still a little bit early. It's Wednesday morning, but just keeping an eye on it is definitely worth it going into the tournament this week.
What do you think we should do in terms of T-splits before we actually get into building lineups a little bit later on? Obviously, you can always hit the time codes after the show to jump around, because we haven't actually filmed the show yet as we are talking. So obviously, if you're watching live, there are no time codes. Just keep that in mind. Some people get very confused about that. But do we just want to pick off the guys that are in the later tee times and just hopefully that works out better?
I think we'll look at it for sure. I'm always interested in building. I'm particularly always interested in building PM AM. And I'm even more intrigued this week because there's one Scotty Scheffler who plays very early in the morning on Thursday and still is going to get the ownership that we expected. So yeah, I think there's definitely opportunity to build PM AM and have at least some lineups within your portfolio that look that way. And I know some will probably commit all of their lineups that way, but it's definitely interesting when it comes to building lineups for DraftKings particularly.
It almost becomes, because there is a cut line of the top 50 in ties this week. You kind of mentioned it pre-show that just try to survive, get your 6 of 6 and let the chips fall. Because Sunday, like Friday and Saturday look fine. It's a bit on the colder side, but there's almost absolutely no wind those 2 days. Then we get to Sunday as it's projected at the moment. And what am I seeing here? I'm seeing gusts up to, where did Sunday go? Sunday is gusts up to 30. For the afternoon when the leaders are going to be on the course. This has been a good chaser venue over the years too. Guys can go out, post a number, and people fall back to them. It seems, at least from what the early forecast is telling me, that this could once again be the case this year.
Yeah, it's 20 to 21 sustained in that afternoon when the sort of stuff's going on that you would expect at the tournament as we try and get a winner. But I will say, Pat, it's hard enough to get a 6-6. Teach me how to get a 6-6 that only has guys on Sunday morning that will score and chase and find their way up the board, and we'll be all set here, my friend. We will be able to pack the show in early and just move on. But yeah, you're just playing to get guys through the weekend, and then you have to just let the golf gods take the wheel from there, if you will.
So looking at the guys who are out early in round one, no shocker, they've kind of stacked some of like the lower end players, although Minwoo and Tom Kim get sandwiched in as the second tee timeout. Brian Campbell, Bridgman, Potgieter, Spawn, Aaron Rai, Sung Jae, Max Homa, Adam Hadwin is out super early. Pendrith and Thigala, Horschel and Day, Fleetwood and Cam Young, Akshay, and Mathieu Pavon, Davis Thompson, Eric Cole. Like those are the first 10 pairings that are at the first 20 players on the course. I'd just be good. Listen, I bet on Taylor Pendrith to win. I bet on Akshay to win. And Akshay is actually a really good win player, but it's a very long course for him for a guy who's not super long off the tee. Very accurate though, so we can probably keep it in play. Are there certain types of players that you would go to here? Like I feel like the more there is wind, obviously it's more of an equalizer for the entire field, but is everyone just going to play Shane Lowry now?
It's possible that people just go to these grinders and whatnot. Like some of these guys, I think we're already going to get a little bit of steam and stuff and get talked about. I've heard mentions of Fleetwood more than ever this week, or more than usual, I should say. Lowry would fit that bill, maybe that mold. Maybe it's guys like Fitzpatrick. I think the grinder type is where people would go to in that perspective, Pat. But for me, it's what you said. There's some of these guys, like, I don't care about any of those guys first thing in the morning. Like there's nobody that I feel like I'm really missing out on in the early morning. The bigger decisions are going to come later when we get to Scotty Scheffler, 9:45 a.m. or Rory McIlroy, 1:00 p.m. That type of stuff where you have to make a decision, and it can then now find you $1,200 in your lineup and go from a 40% owned Scotty to like a 25 to 30% owned Rory. Those are the types of decisions you'd be looking at.
And there's no split tees. Everyone is going off of the first tee. So when I went through the strategy show on the weekend, that it's the order that you want to play it in for showdown purposes anyway. If guys were starting on 10, that's a bad look for showdown because you get 4 of the 6 hardest holes in a row at the swing from 17 through number 2. But this way, everyone's on the same playing field. So that's nice in a way. The one thing with the weather that I think that we shouldn't overlook is that, yes, very early in the morning when the first groups are out, it's bad. But then everyone kind of gets the same stuff. It's just temperature, not so much wind. It'll go up from 57 to 68 by the time like the final guys are on the course. So they'll get to play in slightly warmer weather by about 10 degrees. But I don't think that the Scotties of the world are going to be that much affected by the wind versus the guys that go out later. Maybe it doesn't turn out to be the way. I mean, we're bad at predicting weather. But from what the forecast is telling me, once you get to like 9:30, it's about even the rest of the day.
Yeah, I see it a little different, but I think again, it's all just looking for an angle in. If you don't want to play a 40% Scotty, go PMA. I mean, you'll not have Scotty in your pool, but that's why, it's all to each their own. I build in a portfolio with sets, so I'm going to play some lineups this way for sure, and then I'm going to play some lineups that ignore it and go another way completely. So I think that's the key factor here. But I think Scotty at 9:45 is in 52 to 55 degree weather with 17 mile per hour sustained and up to 30 mile per hour gusts versus 1:00 when Rory goes out is 15, but almost 10 degrees warmer and the wind's down 5 to 10 degrees sustained and gusts. That's a huge difference, I think, but we'll have to see how it actually plays out.
I mean, it's a very compelling case. Scheffler is kind of the one guy that I wouldn't be too concerned about because these are the elements he loves. Like these are the type of tournaments he loves. These are the elements he loves. I'm not saying he's going to go out and shoot 7 under in the first round, but I could just see him grinding out one of those 2 under rounds. Maybe like speaking of underdog, like would you take the over or the higher on 70 strokes for Scotty Scheffler in round 1?
I think it's fine. I think, like you said, Scotty can beat it. It just reminds me, and you remember this stuff better than I do usually, but wasn't it, what was it, Valspar that year when it was kind of the setup that was on a Sunday? It would almost be like this tournament setting up for Sunday. But remember, Sam Burns came out and ended up winning in the playoff. And it was like you could get there in the morning. You could not get there in the afternoon. This almost feels like that type of round that Scotty's playing in the morning where he can grind it out and beat a 70, sure. But it's just, does somebody in the afternoon get a 5-6, get a much better number out there and gets them ahead? Friday's an equalizer, and then Scotty's playing from behind. That would be what you're hoping for if you're fading Scotty and or that wave.
You're thinking of Colonial 2 years ago.
Yeah, was that what it was?
Yeah, it was Scotty, Stallings. I think James Hahn was up there, and Burns was one of the first guys out and went and posted a number. I think he only shot like 3 under or 4 under on the day, but it got him up to a point where he was just behind the leaders. Then everyone else started crumbling down in front of them coming down the stretch.
I just remember it was, you just said it. It was a 7-shot deficit at the 2022 Charles Schwab Challenge. And I just remember Sam Burns was nails. I don't know if we'll get that Sam Burns back anytime soon right now, but I will say Scotty was literally arms crossed, staring in his face as he was looking at him. He's right-handed, and he made the putt from way downtown. I was like, go ahead, Scotty. Good luck, buddy. And Scotty just shook his head and went down, missed his putt, and it was over. So I love stuff like that. It's just, a little reminder in the back of the mind what can happen. But, I just think Scotty can grind it out still. So I'm with you. Scotty's not one I'm worried about. It's the lower end guys you talked about, like the Jacob Bridgmans, the JJ Spawns, the Pot Guiders, the Max Homas, got to show up at some point, guys. Like all those guys go out at 8:00 in the morning on Thursday. That's a tough tee time.
Yeah, the quick tip that I'll give for Underdog this week, and I don't know when they're going to put the numbers up. They might do it after the round actually starts in round 1. However, hole number 16 is super easy at this course. It might not play super easy. I have to go check out the directionality of the wind this week, at least for round 1. But if the wind is behind them, like guys are going to get there in 2, no problem. It actually might be a nice little sweet spot to try to beat up on some of those fantasy props at that time. But I'll try to do that research in the morning once I actually see the overlay of wind and where the holes are. But for Friday and Saturday, just try to make a bunch of different combos of birdies and or eagles on number 16, because that's where the scoring is going to come from. You can usually get a very good sense when the first few guys hit the course and then they're playing through it. Everyone's starting at once. You're going to have ample time to do your research on this and try to really get ahead of the game. But even to play 4 or 5 guys and you play the flex play on Underdog, use code Mayo and Underdog, get your deposit bonus, get your free pick to add to it to really juice up your odds. That's step 1, but that's an angle that I'm going to be taking on Underdog this week, and I think that everyone should follow suit. I'm also doing the first major draft on the show on Friday's show, which is a player's preview, and we're going to do a major Underdog draft.
Yeah. I'm not in it right now, but I think the majors coming back is what has everybody excited. So we'll get the 5th major next week, Pat, with the players, and then roll it out from there. But I'm excited for Masters still. We're getting there. Masters March is on the front, and then April we've got it. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, there's also a new promotion at fantasygolfchampionships.com right now. It's the Fantasy Cares Classic. It's down at the bottom of the page. It's $10 to play in, but the money, you can win money in it. It's only $250 max. Everything goes to charity. With everything. I'm trying to look up it's a one and done. It starts the players through the rest of the season. Like I said, it's only $10 to play, but the money goes to a good cause. I believe half the pot goes to the cause. Anyway, there was an email sent out about it. I just got a text about it this morning. I was like, oh yeah, there we go. Yeah, I'll play in this, because Fantasy Cares is the Scott Fish charity that provides Christmas toys for families in need every single year, and they always raise upwards of like over 100K. So this is one of the events that we're putting on to help out with that. So if you want to go get some extra one and done in your life, go to fantasygolfchampionship.com and get in on that $10 one right now. Final bets for the week. I didn't really do much, honestly, at API. I do want to save some bullets for, listen, there's a boost of 30% that I can give to anyone. I suppose I was looking at Colin, I was looking at Ludwig, maybe get one up to 20, maybe get one up to 25. But all I have in right now are the 3 that I said on Monday. And I added Zalatoris because he slipped to 65. And if it's going to be a non-putting contest this week, it's going to be a tee to green contest. Maybe he can actually get his shit together and figure it out. He's always had some good run at more difficult tournaments, and especially at this course. Even when he had no game last year, he still finished inside the top 5. So I got McNeely at 55, Zalatoris at 65, 75, Pendrith at 75, and Akshay at 85 for the API. If you had to use a boost, let's say, you don't have to use it, I suppose, but if you had to use it on one of these top guys and their odds right now, who do you think you would go to?
I was thinking what you said, probably Ludwig or something like that, but the Colin one is enticing as well. So the first two that you mentioned probably make the most sense, but I don't know, man. What's Xander at right now?
Xander is at 19-1.
Yeah. I don't know. We're going to talk about Xander later, I'm sure. Like there's, people that don't like to play a guy when he's first coming back, the TGL factor, people were making fun of all that stuff. But I think realistically, if he's back, I have to assume he's healthy. And even, the first week Scotty came back was horrible, and he still top 10'd it. So again, you won't usually get there with Scotty at top 10 prices, and it doesn't help with an outright bet like we're talking about now. But just in general, I do think it's somewhat interesting. So yeah, I would probably go with Ludwig or Colin, like you originally mentioned. I like both of those this week.
So with Xander, you could get him with that boost. You could get him up to 25.5-1, which is probably the best number you'll get on him all year. And maybe now with his new Marilyn Manson rib surgery, he has extra flexibility, hit the ball further.
Maybe hits it further. Exactly. Yeah, you called that one from the start, but I think you could be fine there. The other thing too, just about your bets and just mentioning it too, I guess like the putting contest factor. What do you think about that? Because I always think that it comes in more here. Like I feel like the greens are fast. They're going to get faster, the winds, things like that. And then I remember like a lot of 5-footers that are just, you can't count any of them. Everyone gets so pissed off every year at this tournament. Like, oh, he missed a 5-footer. It's like, yeah, it's fast and it's very hard to read. So I feel like the guys that can make those 5-footers are going to be the ones that come in handy. That's every week, but I mean more so on this course with the greens and the way they are.
I would agree with you. So you can't miss your short putts, obviously, but this course has a very low percentage of makes between 10 and 20 feet. It's the second most difficult course on tour annually to make putts from that range. So it's not like you're just going to get Russell Henley in there. Maybe Russell Henley will, and maybe that's why he'll end up at the top of the leaderboard, but just hitting it to 17 feet and making half them for one day. It's like, oh, geez, I didn't expect that to happen. And that's why he's 5 under and no one else is close. Like guys are going to have good putting days. Who? I have no idea, but I think I would just rather lean on the tee to green game, tougher elements. And even like around the green is a lot more difficult here because a lot of it is lie dependent. Like you want to be in the bunkers rather than be in the rough on a lot of these holes, especially greenside, because the rough is looking nasty this year. Yeah. One of my favorite tournaments ever was, I think it was the last full tournament before COVID, was one that Hatton won at this course. And it was just a travesty on the weekend. Only Fitzpatrick broke 70 in 2020. He was the only guy on Saturday and Sunday to break 70 at the course. Like Hatton won firing +1, +2 on the weekend because he was up by enough going into it. Like that's the sort of tournament that I want to see right now. And if that's the case, yeah, you're gonna have to have your grinder type guys, but tee to green tends to overcome in those situations. It turns in more to a US Open type field than anything else.
Yeah, that was the year, and you brought it up, and it was like it was Hatton, Leishman. I got it up here now. Rory, Morikawa, English, Fitzpatrick,
Bryson,
a lot of grinder types.
Bryson ended up he was the guy who posted early on Sunday that year.
Yes, he got a couple other guys had some low rounds, I guess, are close to on Sunday, but he had the low round was like 1 under, and he was there. I guess Fitzpatrick was the low round. Sorry, in round 4 had a 3 under, but yeah, Sung Jae, Bryson, Joel Damon, Keith Mitchell, some of those guys went out and got a low round early to post the scores, but the ultimate winner was Hatton at 4 under, like you said.
Yeah, and Bryson, I just remember Bryson coming out early. I remember staring at his number because he went from like 200-1 to 150-1. Like after he posted, like there's no chance he's going to win, and he had been done like 3 hours before everyone else. And to take a look at it, it's like, well, his odds keep dropping. People are coming back to the pack. And I think Hatton ended up birdieing 16, and that ended up being good for him. So I might add something for the newsletter a little bit later on. I'm just very non-committal on it. It could be Xander, honestly, although he's never played well at this tournament before. He's never finished inside the top 20 in 3 starts, and now he's coming off an injury.
Shouldn't have had a bad Sunday in 2020. He would have been just fine. I just pulled it out. He finished 24th, and it was a bad Sunday for him. Surprise. Patrick Rogers played his way out of the top 5 to shoot 5 over on Sunday and finish 24th.
Well, Patrick Rogers is interesting because he was a part of those names that's going out late on Thursday.
I know. I see it there now. And usually people want to play Patrick Rogers at 40%. Maybe they don't want him this week for once.
I got some Puerto Rico Open bets in as well. I got it was more fun to bet on, honestly. It's like, oh, I'll click these names down the board. It's hilarious. Like Rico Hoey is the top of my card. I have him at 45-1. Ben Coles is probably my favorite bet of the week in any of these tournaments. He's 50-1. I got Goddard at 66-1. Phillips jumped on the bandwagon. He's 80-1. And the amateur, Justin Hastings, at 125-1 are the 5 that I'm rolling out for Puerto Rico. And then Live Hong Kong is this week. Now, Tambo, I've been sick for like a week. I've been having stomach problems. It turns out that giving up coffee gave me some headaches, but giving up coffee was also the reason that I was feeling all right. Went back and like had a cup of coffee and my stomach just got obliterated. So yesterday was the first time I could like even go for a jog. So I threw on the 3 live rounds for an hour from last year's Hong Kong tournament, and I watched them all through while I was going on a run. And if there's any breakdown that you need of Live Hong Kong, it's a very tight course. And it's all the guy, at least last year. And Patrick Reed had won it the year before. So maybe it translated year over year. I didn't go back and watch the 2 years. But just last year, it was all the guys that you would have expected to do well basically at the Valspar. It was like Neiman and Casey, Cam Smith, Answer ended up winning, like that type of player. So my bets this week are Burmeister and Lucas Herbert, 28 and 30. And I bet on Phil, 500-1 with the top 5 each way.
He's feeling good. You see him talking that talk on X. He's getting involved. He's calling out Freddie Couples for making the Brooks comments. I don't know. He must be feeling good about his game if he's willing to go do that. He's a little more confident right now. So 500-1 is a good number.
He's like 8th on Live right now, and he only has 3 rounds, which is one tournament on Live of ball striking, but he's inside the top 8 in ball striking, and he just could not putt in the first tournament that he was in. Maybe he can putt here. If he putts here, we're dancing. 500-1. Cash it.
All 7 Live fans will be watching.
I'll probably listen if it's a fun finish. They should really be more proactive in telling me what time it's actually on in my time zone. I feel like the European Tour is very good about that. Like when you go to their website or even they tweet it out, it's like, yeah, here's the Qatar Masters. But if you live on the East Coast of America, here's like when the first tee time is, instead of like having to like go through and like Google, where's the course? Here's the time zone. What is it in my time zone? They make it a bit easier for me. I would appreciate if Liv could do that.
They said the same for TGL, that they got to get their times figured out. It's going to be way better next year because they're going to play it. They're going to fix it and put it on at the same time every week, so people aren't chasing it around and trying to find it.
That's pretty smart. You know, it's just like the Pat Mayo Experience show that I do with you right now, 9 a.m. Eastern time every single Wednesday. People can just be like, oh yeah, Mayo and Tambo are on. I'll tune that on. It's not like, no, next week it's 4 a.m. Watch out for that one. Although
and find out about it later. Exactly.
In fairness, in 2 weeks, it's not going to be live because I'm going to be away that Wednesday. So we're going to have to record on like a Tuesday night or something.
When is that? For the Valspar?
I believe for the Valspar, yeah.
All right. Yeah, should work.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll figure out a time that works for both of us, and we'll pre-package the show, and I'll just release it, I suppose. You know what? It'll probably come out even earlier that day. It'll just be up for people to watch if they want to. But those are the bets that I'm rolling out this week. One and done. How have you been doing in the one and done?
I thought I was going to be doing okay last week, and then Henley blew up at the end, but I'm only at like 1.1 million or something, so I'm behind.
All right. My best team right now is 4.6 million. So I need to really up on that. Who did I have last week? Oh, I had Pendrith, and he missed the cut. Great. So where do you think that we should be going with? Because obviously a lot of teams are out of some of the big guys. I've used Scheffler on 2 of these teams already. I use Scheffler in the one and done I do with Jeff and Tim. Tim had to change his pick. He initially picked Keegan this week, but he had already picked Keegan at the Genesis Invitational. So he has switched to Rory McIlroy as his one and done.
That's who I have. That's my pick right now.
I think he's going to be the most popular guy.
It's possible, but I just
Paul was using him too.
Yeah. Well, what else are we doing here? Like Scotty, I guess. I don't know. I just feel like this is one that these are the guys, and you just take them. I guess I screwed this up last time. I forget which one it was, but what week did Rory win? What was that?
Pebble.
Okay. It was a signature this year, correct? Yes.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was the week I talked to you directly, and I'm not blaming you. Nobody cares. I'm just saying, I did say, I feel like I should just go Rory here. And there's like, well, I think everyone's going to do it. We could save him. There's 100 different tournaments. You can use Rory anywhere. And I felt like I should have just used him because it was just like, you don't need to get different. You don't need to go against the field that early, all these other things. And I missed it. So sure, it won't get any better this week, but I'm sticking by my guns. I'm going with Rory this week, but we can talk some other options maybe and see what else we got here.
Well, on the team that I usually allocate for our show when I make the picks, like I've already used Ludwig, I've already used Scotty. So, wrong time, wrong place for both those guys when I ended up using them. I don't, and it's pretty far behind right now. Well, it's in 700th place. So it's not like it's just outside of the money. So a Rory win would boost me up inside the money. But what do you think about someone like Xander or Cantlay? Just like, is anyone going to use Xander coming off of an injury? Like, is this the place to use him?
I don't think many will. It'll be like your man. What was the one you got? Ludwig? You had that one, and he goes on to win. So I don't know if we'll end up like that. But the week you said less people want to use him because he was coming off of a sickness. He should be fine. Blah blah blah. And then next thing you know, he goes out and wins. So I don't know that many will go to Xander. But real quick, just on the Scotty take, you said you're out, but 90% of the field, I have it up here right now. Just looked at it. 90% has Scotty available. Are they using him or saving him?
I would wager he is the second most used player. I think Rory's going to be the most used, then it will be Scotty, which makes sense. I completely understand that. And I would rather use Scotty. I think I would use Scotty if I had Scotty available right now. He's won here 2 of the past 3 years. The weather does make it a bit of an equalizer. There's something intriguing about that maybe it just takes two bad holes could take you out of the tournament because there's so much water around. But Scheffler's always been really good at navigating that. And yeah, you get what? I think it's like an extra $500K if you win the Masters. Maybe it's a little bit more if you win the Players. So that will take people off of Scotty. Like, I need to save him for the biggest event, which is, I can't remember if it's next week or not. The Players is always first or second.
Next week.
Yeah, but it's either first and second in terms of overall payout, which they don't announce until like the week of. So yeah, kind of have to like massage it a little bit. But you get $4 million for winning this tournament. Like if I use Scotty here and he won, I'm not going to like be bummed that I didn't use him next week and he won. Like I still get my 4 million out of it. I'm doing fine. But I just think, where are you saving Rory for? Like objectively, like, is there one spot that people are like, oh, he's going to win the PGA Championship because it's at Quail Hollow? That I could see. Other than that, if you're going to use him in a big purse tournament, this is the one to use him in.
Yeah, so I texted my dad this morning. His pick is Ludwig, by the way. So back to your previous point of who you could bet and get the boost on. He likes Oberg, but I texted him. I was on Scotty, and then I changed it right after I texted him to Rory because of the exact thing you just said. So I'm glad you brought that up because I was like, okay, with Scotty, I know it's the same for both kind of, but realistically for me, Scotty, I feel much better about 3 to 4 more tournaments that I want to use him at or will use him at or be fine with it. With Rory, it's any given time, but I feel like this is the event. So I feel much better about just using Rory here, taking what I get. If it's $1 million because he chokes down the stretch instead of 4 million, it's unfortunate. And if somebody else has the big winner and it is Scotty, then that's great. It's going to hurt me. But I'm good with that because of the reason you just said. That's why I changed it to Rory.
I could see myself using the problem with using Xander is if he's not right, maybe an outright bet is actually the bet on him. Like, oh, if he wins, I just win like $2,500 or something like that. And if he sucks, like, okay, whatever, like it's an outright bet. He didn't win. There's no difference between him coming in 67th place and second place in my outright bet, where it would make a big difference in the one and done, where if he absolutely sucks, well, I've used one of the 4 best players on the board and I got literally no money from him.
Yeah, you can get like 30th place money in the one and done by putting $100 on them this week. So if you don't want to use them, just do that and move on. But I think that's kind of the way I look at it for a guy like him. I have a ton of different tournaments that I can let him get right. I'll use them in DFS where it's, some lineups, part of my portfolio, some afternoon only lineups that start with him, things like that, where I think it makes a ton more sense because people want to play Scotty, Rory, Ludwig, Morikawa that he's sandwiched over there for one and done. I feel like you can just easily pull the trigger on these other guys, Scotty, Rory, and then whoever else would be in the next mix that you can go to.
Colin is really intriguing for me here because I don't know where I would be saving him for. I think that he'll be good at a lot of these tournaments. Like he and Cantlay are the two that I'm looking at like, is anyone going to use these guys? And like when I say anyone's going to use them, like, are they going to be over 10%? I don't think so in the one and done. And we don't really have like a big, like all Morikawa has played this year are the signature events. He hasn't played any other tournament, which is really strange. He has a 2nd, a 17th, and a 17th. Like he's been playing TGL every single week. So, he's getting those reps in, but he just sort of feels like the forgotten man, like kind of like Cantlay does right now. Cause Cantlay's in that weird sandwich, be it on DraftKings, the betting market, or how it comes to how people perceive this field, that he's just like he's well after the, He's like slightly after the 5-6 best guys in the field, but he's well above the range that I talked about before, like Finau and Zalatoris and Sung Jae Im and those like 45 to 1, 50 to 1 guys. It's just sort of like him in the middle. Him and Fleetwood are the two, and it seems like everyone prefers Fleetwood.
Agreed for that. Don't you think though, like a guy like Cantlay versus trying to get sneaky here at the API, doesn't he play in enough tournaments later on where he's one of the only good players in the field and like others used him up to try and get tricky with him, and then you've got him available for the week that it actually matters? Like that's how I think about a guy like him. So I'm fine saving Cantlay personally for whatever event it becomes down the stretch that he's one of the top 5 golfers in. Versus right now, tricky to say that, but he's up there. But you also have outliers here that I think could get there too. So it's tricky for me to go with Cantlay this week, but I get the argument.
I think that's where I'm going to end up going with our team. I'm just taking a look at what he's done so far this season. Like, he had a bad Amex and still came 5th. He was 5th at the Genesis a few weeks ago at the elevated event, gained a bunch on approach the past 2 tournaments, which is really helpful to see. He made basically all of his putts. He's played this tournament twice. He has a top 5 here. If his game is starting to come around, maybe he doesn't win, maybe he comes 3rd, something like that. And I would take that from Cantlay at this tournament, because the other one that you would probably want to use him at, he plays well at Heritage and he plays well at Memorial. But Cantlay is weird that I do like him at events that actually are much tougher than a lot easier.
I don't know why. I feel like it's opposite for me. I was just thinking of like his other results and stuff like that, but I feel like he usually plays really good on easy courses. Right? You see him going some of those later on in the season. I was just trying to look back at last year, but like that's what I was thinking of down the stretch. Like the Travelers, he comes T5. The I guess the Heritage is one. It's not an easy one, but that's one that you talked about that you could save him for. So I don't know. I like Morikawa more than Cantlay.
Okay, maybe Morikawa it is then. So yeah, Morikawa will be the pick.
Let's do that. Yeah, I feel better about that one. And if Cantlay gets there, you can razz me later. But I think that this is a good spot to go Morikawa.
I can't even use Cantlay for the team that I was looking at, the team that I have at the very top of the leaderboard right now. I can't even use Cantlay. I might just burn Scotty. That one.
Yeah.
Burn Scotty.
I don't think you're going to be burning much. I think it could be a celebration, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I'm sticking with my Rory play over here, but I like your call.
I haven't bet Russell Henley at all this year or used him for anything, but doesn't this feel like the week where everyone's just so mad at him that he finally does something?
Yeah, I will talk about that too. Definitely think he's fine here. What did everyone use Cantlay for, though? Side note, just looking him up now, he's been used 30% already.
He was in the field for the Amex, so people probably used him there. I used him at Pebble Beach when I just went through everything. So yeah, I guess that's where I burned him. Maybe people used him at the Genesis at Torrey Pines as well.
Yeah, we like him at RBC Heritage. We like him at a few of these others down the stretch. So yeah, I'm good with saving him. I like the Morikawa call though. I think that could work out.
There was one other player, and if I'm going to go down into this range, it probably makes more sense to use the guys that I actually bet to win this week. But something about Finau I find really intriguing now.
What is it? Please tell.
He's had 2, like he's another one who's only played signature events the past 2 weeks. He came into the year with an injury, which I think that people forget about. So he's pretty brutal through the stretch of January, but he gets to Pebble and he puts the lights out, chips the lights out, comes inside the top 15, follows that up at Genesis. He gained a bunch on approach. He gained a bunch around the greens. The putting's been pretty solid. The driving is hit or miss. It's just, I like him again. And like more of these grinder type events. He's always been a really good US Open player.
I was looking more at like the fairway stuff, and you were talking about that rough. I feel like he's been playing out of it quite a bit. So yeah, I'm not super high on him, but I get it.
I'm less concerned about missing the fairway and ending up in the rough, because that rough isn't like the rough that's around the greens at this place. It's a lot like, Memorial's a bit different because the fairways are so wide there. So they do have a lot of really long rough off the fairways, but everyone just kind of hits the fairway. But the closer you get to the green, the nastier and nastier it ends up getting. And I actually like him out of that thick stuff chipping. Like that's where he tends to do his best chipping versus the field, where it was a lot like Victor's always chipped pretty well at this place. And we always think like, where does Victor do well? It's like, oh, it's where like the touch of chipping gets taken at a play a lot. It's like at the Players with Victor, where there's shaved surfaces everywhere, the Masters at the same time as well. It's hard for him to get up and down because his wedge game is so bad where you can just kind of nail the club into the ground just to hope to hit it and roll it up somewhere and have to go make a 6-foot putt. That's where I prefer Finau rather than him at a place where like Patrick Reed is trying, or Justin Thomas is trying to like spin it into the hole from 48 feet from off the green.
Maybe you just play Victor here. Maybe you just sold yourself on a little Hovland.
I do not like where he's at right now.
Going back to his old putter, he said.
Well, that's great. Is it the putting that's been the problem for him?
I don't you never know with this guy. He's changing something new every week, so it's tough to tell.
Yeah, it just seems like he's in his own head.
Right now, definitely. And from where he was when we were, I don't know, it happens with everybody, but like the crowning of the two that stand out to me the most right now, and it's probably a guy we'll talk about later too, but the Victor Hovland and Max Homa. Like Victor Hovland was about to win every major, we were told. And then the Max Homa was a top 5 player in the world at that run that he went on too. So it both have fallen off quite a bit from there. That's golf. It happens to everybody, but it's, something that's been pretty wild. And the drop has been complete now. I think Victor's down to 8,300 when we get to DraftKings. His betting odds, you probably have them there. And then Homa is down in the low 6Ks now on DraftKings, and odds are up there as well. So maybe the two of them can show up this week, but it's been a rough stretch.
Wyndham Clark was that guy for me after this tournament last year and after the players. Like, this guy's like a top 5 player in the world. Like, it's undeniable. He has a major 2 signature event wins. He just came second at API. He just came second at the players. Like, here we go. And he's been terrible ever since. He got Mayo cursed.
Big Netflix star though. We've seen him a lot lately there. So
have you watched? Did you watch through Full Swing?
Yeah,
I haven't seen a second of it. Did you see? The only thing that I've seen is the clip of Byron walking.
Yeah, it's not till it's either the second last or the last episode when it happens, and it literally is just the swagger walk of the 3 steps that he takes, and then it moves on. But it's pretty sweet. And shout out to Byron. He's the man. That was a really fun week.
It was. People don't realize that Byron is a gigantic individual. He's like mini Aldrich Pottekeiter. He
really is. He's a big boy, man. Awesome dude. Really fun person to hang out with. So shout out to him. But that was cool to see him on there. But it is just, he got his, what do they say? Like 15 seconds of fame. He got his 1.5 seconds. They put a little decimal point in between, but he's got his 1.5 seconds of fame on Netflix.
Yeah. In the editing world, we probably just call it 15 frames of fame.
Yes. Yeah. That rhymes too. I like that one even better. The best was Rappaport. He's like featured on there, and that's Byron's buddy. So that was kind of funny. And my wife's watching it because the thing about that, the wives like this, right? It's like stories. You're seeing the wives, you're seeing the kids, you're seeing all the other stuff play out. She's like, who the hell is this annoying guy in the bucket hat? So sorry, Danny Rapp, but not a fan favorite in the Tamboline house when it comes to the wives. My wife over here. So
or apparently on the bus that day that I missed.
that was Byron and him, man. Yeah. Byron and him were going back and forth. That's their beef.
That's amazing. All right. Speaking of Byron, obviously Fantasy Golf Degenerates will be out next week for the players, but I'm doing a special show on Friday morning. So please tune in. It'll be the kickoff to Players Championship Week. It's me, it's Byron. And do you know who the third person is, Tambo?
Kenny Kim.
No, I didn't want to steal too much thunder from their show. It is Cam Stewart on with us.
Okay. Nice. That should be good then. I'm excited for that. And then Byron will get on there too. It'll be a good time.
Yeah, it's going to be an awesome show. I'm looking forward to it, recording it tomorrow for Friday. So please tune into the Pat Mayo Experience then. Sub to the channel to make sure that you don't miss it. Smash the like and code Mayo at Underdog as well. I'll give you a few promos before I hit you with a bunch of ads. So stay tuned. Have you noticed how Pat Mayo seems a whole lot better rested recently? It's no secret. I got my old mattress, took it outside, threw it in the trash the moment my Helix mattress showed up. My wife and I took the quiz on helixsleep.com. We went through everything and we decided the firmness. We wanted the temperature, how we actually sleep. And all of a sudden, the mattress shows up. We lay down and I'm not having a lot of the sleep problems that I've been having in the past. I just wake up 50 times a night. Not no more with my Helix mattress. I was sleeping on my side with my head underneath my pillow, and I was getting chicken wing for when I woke up, and my back and my shoulders were sore because there was a divot inside my old mattress where I'd been sleeping on it so long. Now, all of that has gone. It's been such an upgrade with my Helix mattress that I'm getting full sleep, and even my Apple Watch is telling me that I'm getting a far more full sleep this time. I'm not hitting 54% on my sleep cycle anymore. Now I'm up at like 90%, even 100% some nights. So hopefully this can help you out as well. And you can go to helixsleep.com/Pat Mayo for the March Madness sale, which is 20% off site-wide. That's helixsleep.com/Pat Mayo for 20% off site-wide. helixsleep.com/Pat Mayo. Look, I know we got a lot of male listeners out there, and that amongst us, hair thinning very common. It's a very frustrating problem that many men deal with, from stress to nutrition to hormones and lifestyle. So many internal factors affect what you see on the outside. Luckily, Nutrafol is here to help. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand, trusted by over 1.5 million people. See thicker, stronger, faster growing hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. For me, it's all preventative. If I can take this now, hopefully I'm not going to have to deal with any thinning down the line. But if you want to build a hair growth routine, it's simple. Purchase online, no prescription required, automated deliveries, and free shipping to keep you on track. Plus, with a Nutrafol subscription, you can save up to 20%. You'll have access to free naturopathic doctor consults, and a Headspace meditation membership is also included. So, start your hair growth journey with Nutrafol. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering my listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and enter the promo code PATMAYO. Find out why over 4,500 healthcare professionals and stylists recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code PATMAYO. That's Nutrafol.com, promo code PATMAYO. Welcome to the TGL presented by SoFi, golf's newest league. It's sharp. It's electric. How sharp is it? How electric is it? Good questions. Try this on for size. 2 hours of hammer dropping, overtime forcing, playoffs on the line, golf with 24 of the best players from the PGA Tour, split into 6 teams: Atlanta, Boston, Jupiter, LA, New York, and the Bay Golf Club. This isn't your average Sunday pickup game. Tune into TGL Monday or Tuesday night only on ESPN. Claim yourself a seat for the first season of TGL now. Keep up. It's golf. All right, let's talk about something I thought I'd never say. I give up coffee, and not just for a day, not just for a detox. I actually stopped drinking coffee because I found something that makes me feel so much better. It's called Peaks Nandaka. And listen, it's not just another coffee alternative. It's the upgrade your body has been waiting for. I used to wake up needing coffee to function, and then I'd pound a whole bunch of coffee. But then after the morning buzz wore off, I was not feeling great. I was drained by the afternoon, and most of the time I'd probably have to take a nap. But don't even get me started on the bloating, the stomach issues. I knew I needed something different and something that actually supported my body instead of depleting it, making me dehydrated all day long. And that's when I found Nandaka. If you're sick of feeling wired, tired, or just running on fumes, you need to try Nandaka today. Right now, Peak is offering 20% off for life and a free starter kit with your purchase. That's rechargeable frother and glass beaker to make the perfect cup every time. Just go to peaklifecom/mayo. That's PIQUE life.com/mayo. Trust me, your energy, your gut, and your future self will thank you. Coming back, Pat Mayo, Tambo on the line from shipitnation.com, talking about DFS. First, I want to do my underdog plays. I made them, well, that like 84-minute ad was on. But you should try the mushroom tea, though. And if you're going bald, Nutrafol is for you. I'll try to figure out who I need to give that to. It's not me as much, although preventative it might have to be. Scotty Scheffler, higher than 70 strokes on Underdog for Thursday. Shane Lowry, lower than 72 strokes. So I just need Shane to shoot 1 under. If they both shoot 1 under, Tambo, we're a winner on this one.
It's fair. I like that. It's a good setup, a good way to get it done.
And if there's like the way, and that pays 3.34 to 1, I dumped the link into the live chat right now. If anyone wants to tail it, I'll have it in the newsletter post again tonight as well. If you want to get it in on it that way, maybe stuff will move around by later tonight in terms of how the odds are dictated or what the scores are going to be. But if you can find anyone that you actually like for lower on Thursday, they're giving that like priority. Like it says like higher or lower on each side, but everyone is going to correlate the higher together. If you can find one lower to throw in there on a total score, it's going to juice up what you're doing. And if you use code Mayo Underdog right now, you'll get a free pick to add on to this. And I think that will boost it up to 6.7 to 1. That's not bad.
Yeah, they definitely take that. Almost 7 to 1 is nice. That's one that people sometimes don't get too excited about, but I'd always be excited for a 7 to 1.
Yeah, people are talking about like, oh, do I bet Scotty Scheffler at 3 to 1? It's like, wait, you can just play against him a little bit right here and get basically more than that on your money.
Yeah, That's what it's all about. And then put down a number you're comfortable with.
Yeah, and then you can use code Mayo, get those deposit funds along with the free pick, and you can draft all your best ball teams. All my rankings out very soon for that. I just want to see who gets into the open from this week, and then I'll have my official list done up, and I'll have that sent out to everyone and do some shows on it as well. Let's talk DK. How did DK go for you last week? It's weird when you don't play. You're so out of sight, out of mind. It seemed like the chalk did really well.
Yeah, it wasn't a great week for me. I only got back, I think I got back like 35% of my entries. So not a good week overall, but it just didn't have a lot of those guys. The last couple of weeks, actually, the Potgeider week that he did well was no good for me either. So, this is how it works on DraftKings. I'm excited to get back to a signature event where we've got a bunch of good players and it's not really making decisions on, players at high prices just because of the odds and whatnot. I like events like this a lot better.
Well, where do you want to start this week? Where do you think the peoples are going with their lineups?
It's tough to say. Like the original setup is obviously Scotty and then build down. So we could start there. What's the best Scotty lineup look like? Because I still think we see a world where Scotty's up there no matter what. Regardless, people aren't going to care too much about his tee time. And I don't think you should, by the way. We talked about that, especially even if you are building those set lineups into your portfolio. You can still have Scotty lineups within it. You can still have Scotty lineups without those in a different way. So I'm not moving off Scotty this week just because he starts at 9:45 a.m. on Thursday, mainly just bringing up points about how that would kind of go with what we talked about in the past, Pat, where you can naturally get different from some of the chalk just by going with a wave, even if there doesn't end up being a wave advantage. You just wouldn't have Scotty in lineups that start with afternoon guys. Pretty obvious.
Do you think it's going to be Scotty or Rory is most owned?
I still think Scotty, but we saw that last time there was a glaring difference. So maybe it comes together a little bit closer than we originally anticipated. Currently, sites have it, from 40 to 27 type split. It could definitely come down to like a 35-35 type thing by the time, and then somebody else gets a little more elsewhere or something like that.
Yeah, that's one where I could see the wind flipping it. Like if people are like, I'm not comfortable with the wind right there on Thursday. Rory's going out later. Like all things being equal, I'll take the cheaper price, make my team better. Because right now I have it Scotty over Rory as well, but it's inching closer and closer. It seems that I can see them just both being 30%.
And then Scotty's a better play because right now the further Rory, if Scotty goes down, Rory goes up. And then it just flips the sort of setup there because you get a completely different construction when you go 12K versus 10-8. But you can definitely play both of them together this week as well. That's something we have to talk about because, you still have $6,800 left. And that's another just glaring mistake. I'll go on a quick rant for 2 seconds and get your take on it because people say the same thing every week. And I played DFS for a very long time. I'm well-versed in this, but they say, okay, first of all, the pricing is very bad on Scotty Scheffler for a guy that's 3-1 to win the tournament. He should not just be 12K. The other thing is it's a signature event where the guys in the 6Ks are very valid options. It's not like a US Open when you have amateurs and qualifiers and old guys and randoms. It's all golfers. Last week's winner is there. Totally different course, different field. I get it. But just saying there's definitely good plays down in the 6K range. And then the thing everyone says, Pat, that I want to get your take on is like, oh, but we all have the same pieces. We all got to build off the same stuff. That doesn't mean it's good. Well, that is fair and true. It doesn't make it better because if it ends up being Scotty lineups and that you're just setting yourself up for it's whoever gets lucky with the random 5. Obviously, we're going to build accordingly and try and put ourselves in that position, but that's why it's so bad. You need a Scotty 12-8. You need a Rory 11-1, 11-2. You need setups where you have to make decisions, and then it spreads it out a little bit and makes it a little bit different. This is going to lead to a lot of the same types of builds this week. And if you just get different and play the leverage plays, a balanced build, well, how is that better? Like Scotty is still definitely the super favorite here to win. So you're just getting different to get different. That's why it doesn't always add up when people say, well, we all have the same pieces to build with. That's true, but it doesn't make it good or fun.
Well, let's do this. What percentage of lineups do you think will have Scheffler and Rory in them together? Let's say they both end up at 30% owned overall. What is that combo going to be? 6 to 10%?
Yeah, I was gonna say 5 to 8, but that's because I looked it up just recently for one of the things over on Mastermind when I was putting it together to try and show people where you can see afterwards what the combo looked like, and I think it would be somewhere in that 5 to 8% range. Again, it's not. There's tons that aren't using it. 95% might not be using it. It's just saying that it's more of the one or the other, and then you add in the combo of it too. You kind of put yourself in a corner where there's only so many builds. It's not that you won't be unique. You won't be duped necessarily, but you will be almost like a way of putting it is like roster construction duped. Like you're in a roster construction that's so popular once you go that way that you're kind of just coming down to who gets lucky with the other 4 guys in the Scotty Rory line, right? So some people want to just play for that angle, and that's fine.
If we go, let's start this then. Let's go Scotty and Rory. You can see it up on the screen right now. Smash the like, sub to the channel to Mayo Media. $6,800 left to play with. Who are the goobers that we put in here? Because the first 2 names that stick out to me are Harris English and Brian Harman. Although when I take a look at Fantasy National and I see where the peoples are going, they're basically all using Nick Taylor.
Really? Yeah. See, this is why it's been tricky all season to figure this stuff out, because I have different guys. I don't know where the people are, why the people are so high on English. That one keeps coming up, but
well, that one makes sense. I mean, I don't think anyone's on Harman. I just personally like Harman.
Yeah, I think again, it just depends on what people are looking at. The odds has guys like Harman, Glover, Highsmith, Rogers. Those guys are where the odds go, but where the people actually go has been extremely difficult to figure out. But the main thing this week is the 6K range just isn't really getting steamed up. Like there's, I do see Nick Taylor and English as guys that show 8 to 9%. But if that's wrong and it flips anywhere else, then it just becomes a spread out version of everyone is 3 to 10% or 3 to 9%, and it's spread out across the board. So you're not going to get a ton of leverage going from a 7% Harris English to a 3% JT Poston. It's, you still got to get the guy that ends up being the guy. I wouldn't just change it over 3% ownership.
So where do we go? Let's say we do that. We go Harris English, Brian Harman. Maybe we'll throw Nick Taylor in there too, just for kicks right now. It gives us $7,100. That means we can have Horschel or Grazerman as our highest price player left on the board. We have anyone lower than 71, but those are the 2 right now. I'm not playing Cam Young, by the way.
No? Why? Isn't this the time when everyone's done with him and he finally shows up?
No one is ever done with him is the thing.
Yeah, it's true. But I don't know. This week, it feels like it could be.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, $7,000. He's the best player in the field. He's $7,000. Waste money. Click.
Don't people click Grazerman and Spawn and Patrick Rogers before they click him?
I don't think so, no. Cam Young is in the Fleetwood Finau zone of whatever you think they're going to be, they're just going to be higher.
If Cam Young gets ownership this week, then everything's broken. It goes back to the Hovland $7,900 week where people just literally go off price and price only, because there's, to me, I see all the guys around him. Grazerman, Spawn, Rogers. You mentioned English down there. Some of these other guys.
I have him as the lowest projected owned of all of those guys as well. I just think that people are going to use Cam Young because they like to bet. Yeah. They like to bet Cam Young. They like to think Cam Young is awesome. And they will make cases as, oh, if he can just get it back together, of all these guys down in this range, he has the most win equity of all of them. Hell, he came top 10 at 6 of 8 majors in a row. He plays hard courses really well. I get all the stuff behind it. Maybe these are all reasons to play Cam Young. Just, I don't want to do it.
Yeah. And then I get that. So back to your build for 2 seconds, just going to that. It's like, this is the other thing. That's the build that I wouldn't like this setup here of at least 1 or 2 popular 6K guys with that pairing, because now you really are sort of painting yourself into that corner. I think you have to make a decision down low of taking on a, I don't know, Justin Rose, Eckroat.
I'll take
Dunlap.
I'll take Pavon.
Something like that. Yeah. Whoever you choose, whoever your guy is. I'm saying if you do that, so where's Mathieu Pavon? Where's he at?
He's at 62. So I can go Scheffler, McIlroy. I'll still use Harris English because I do like Harris English. He's 66. I'll use Harman.
Well, this is where the Harris English love is coming from. Then you must have talked about him enough that you love him, because everyone's mentioning him.
No, it makes perfect sense. I mean, he has one of the best course histories at this course. When people take a look at what other courses do people play well at, it's Torrey Pines, where he just won. And he's only $6,600. I just think it makes a lot of logical sense. I'm not betting him this week. Maybe I should be betting him this week. I already missed out on him once. Do I miss out on him again? And I just think people feel safer, especially with the weather with him, where if it's going to be more of a grinder type tournament, like him and Bez would be the 2 that come to mind, and Harman, the most in my mind of the guys in the 6K who I would like.
You should always play it really safe when it's the most top heavy tournaments in history of DraftKings, and make sure you get all the safest plays in there. So definitely do that.
I mean, what is your argument against him versus some of these other guys that are here? Who do you think is better?
Let me see. It literally doesn't matter. There's my argument is there's 30 guys in this range alone, let alone the 7Ks has another I don't know, even if you just do low sevens, there's like another 10 more. So there's like 40 guys, 39 around him. I would make sure you got the guy that you actually want. So if people just want him because he's safe, then play him. That's like I said, I'm not getting away from just because of ownership. I just didn't understand where the love came for Harris English. That's all it was.
I mean, I don't think it's necessarily that he's safe is why people like him. I think they like his skills for this course. I mean, he just won at a similar style of course, and he won in bad weather on that final day and played really well. And he's played well at this course and in this tournament historically as well. I think that's why people like him. It's not that just, oh yeah, like he's a grinder, he's going to do well. There's a lot of grinders out there, but he's someone that can flash upside in easier conditions and grind it out at the same time. It just feels like of all of the guys in the 6Ks, he's the most well-rounded player right now.
Yeah, and I'm just like, even when you're talking grinders, again, whatever actually shows up or happens this week versus course history for sure. You have to look at that. People know that exact same thing happens every single year at every single tournament. Of course, very sarcastic, but JT Poston, Bez, Glover. I mean, there's definitely guys around here. Nick Taylor, who we just mentioned, who may or may not get the similar ownership. We'll have to wait and see. Harmon, who you mentioned. There's literally 5 Harris Englishes around Harris English. So that's all I'm trying to say. If he ends up being
so, let's box him out. Give me the guy that you like the best, who's not Harris English, then, and I'll put him in.
I would just go with anybody around him. Like you can put in Nick Taylor.
If Nick Taylor and Harris English are going to have basically the same ownership, which you just said, why wouldn't I play Harris English, who I like better?
That's not my, again, that wasn't even my argument. That's what I'm saying. People love him and are saying like, he's the guy, was my point. More than if you like him, play him. I'm just saying there's people deciding to move off of him because he's too high owned, and there's people that just love him for whatever reason. And it's kind of what you just said. People are just going with it based on course history and recent win and saying that he would be the guy. But I don't have another guy against him. I'm not betting against him. I'm just saying I see this range as you don't need to just go to one guy like that. There's tons of options around him to me that are kind of the same play when I'm building up my lineups.
Well, let's try to figure out who we like the best of the upper 7K range, because I have no problem using Glover. Hell, I'll use Novak. I really don't care. Dunlap is always the tricky one, although I think Dunlap might be the worst play on the board because he cannot drive the ball straight. He's just going to be in the water every time.
Yeah, so that'd be a decision when you're building out your pool for down here. Like I mentioned some of the guys that I like, but it's how they get put together. We'll have to wait and see. But like I said, there's so many guys that I would play around here that would get different. Somebody said in the YouTube chat, actually said, I already made this exact lineup. That's what I was trying to say about when we were starting it off. When you get, the chalky version of the lineup, that's kind of what you want to avoid. And I still think people go to Highsmith, Eckroat, those guys too. But again, it's going to be spread out down below, but you just don't want to box yourself into a similar lineup. So when you said Pavon, for example, and again, doesn't mean this is the lineup or a great lineup or anything, just saying I like that he's different than Eckroat and Highsmith. He wouldn't be the common guy when you do go down that low. He's also quite different than people using 3 of the higher 6K guys, because now with Pavon, you can go to, let's say, JT Poston as an example at 66, and now you have 7,200. Now you can play a 7K and a 74, a 73 and a 71, 272 guys. Like you can get different that way and still skip over the 8, 9K range and not use 3 6K guys. That's how I'm looking at it differently from a roster construction perspective.
Just trying to see what Siwoo's been up to. I assume he has decent finishes. I assume he just hasn't made any putts all year long. That's usually the case with Siwoo.
Yeah, until he does. That's exactly it.
Yeah, he's longer tracks are not usually where he excels, although he just played Phoenix and Genesis pretty well. Yeah, -2, I mean, the putting hasn't been as bad. It was disastrous at the Sony Open. But the approach play has been good. We know that he's one of the more accurate players on tour. Great touch around the greens. Maybe it's a week to go to Siwoo. I'm trying to figure out what to do here. Like with the roster that I have up right now, I have $7,800 left, which means I could get up to Akshay if I wanted to, which I do like. But I could also get Connors, Jason Day, Fitzpatrick. Michael Kim is $7,600. So is Ben Griffin. Ben Griffin rates out so well, it's hysterical. And I really do not want to use him.
Yeah. If you do kind of a bottom-up build, we could do it later where you don't include the 6s and it involves sort of the low to mid 7s. It does congregate towards the Ben Griffins, Michael Kims, Adam Scotts, all those guys, Aaron Rise getting a little mention, those types of guys. And then you could still land on one of Scotty and Rory and a better play up top. The build you have up right now, I think is, again, unique and different still, but I think it also leads to you need a lot of things to go your way, right? You need Scotty and Rory to be the two guys that come through. I think that's very possible at API versus other places we've seen. And then also you need those to be the 6K guys and the other ones to come through. You always need that. But just in general, talking through it, it does look a little bit tougher for that to be the way when you see what you have to put in at the bottom for your build there.
So the bottom of this build, so this ends up being Rory and Scotty with Glover and Pavon at the bottom. Then I just upgraded Harman to Siwoo and used Dietrich with him.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be a super popular, like you said. I don't think there's going to be a lineup people land on.
No, a lot of people would have what you said. You'll swap these guys out that you've got in the 7s and be able to get to English and Highsmith and guys like that instead. That's a little bit more chalky. That's, I think, what the chat was alluding to, of joking that they've already got this exact lineup, but you definitely get a little bit more unique once you take one of Rory or Scotty out and then build it out that way.
So let's try to build some PM guys for Thursday and then just hope that's an actually big split and see what happens with that. So the final 6 pairings that are out: Campos and Harris English. There's another Harris English boost. He's the last guy out on the court. Maybe Harris English first round leader is the play. And then all those Harris English lineups will be like, oh my God, I'm going to win all the money. And then it'll be like 80, 80, 80 the rest of the week. Jot that down. Harris English first round leader. Rogers and Rose, Highsmith and Cantlay, Burns and Wyndham, Xander and Thomas, Lowry and Rory. So we could start like a Xander Thomas lineup here. Xander Thomas, Wyndham Clark, or Xander. I mean, just play the pals. Xander and Patrick Cantlay with Sam Burns and Patrick Rogers, like a core 4 of them.
Xander, Burns. What was the other guy you said? Cantlay,
and then Patrick Rogers. What does that leave you with? That leaves you with 7250. Maybe you don't even use Xander. You use Justin Thomas, who was a part of that as well. So you go Thomas, Cantlay, Burns, Rogers. Then you have $7,600 left. Because honestly, like looking down the most popular plays of the week, it's going to be Scotty, Rory, Ludwig for sure. Like those are almost certainly going to be the top 3 highest owned guys. Thomas and Cantlay are going to get a bunch of steam as well. And after that, Fleetwood, Henley, I don't know. No one seems to be like popping off the charts anywhere below those top guys.
All right, so we can get your dudes in. We can get Will Zalatoris and Harris English. Rounds it out.
Was Zalatoris a part of that crew that I mentioned?
He's close enough. He goes out at 12:15, so it's not that bad.
12:15.
Like he's out less than an hour before JT and those guys, so I think he's fine.
Oh, Finau's $9,200. No one is going to play Finau. I'm going to play Finau. That's what I'm going to do. So as you said, Zal and Harris English would make it?
It would. Or if you wanted to play Finau, you'd have to pick your guy at 6K flat.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to do that.
It'd be Rafael Campos.
Who is the last guy out on the course as well. So, yeah, so I mean, if that makes sense, Zalatoris and English. I mean, if you want to use English, maybe that's the way to do it, like this.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about that is, the 2 6K guys, but you have 3 9Ks, right? Most people using 2 6Ks are definitely going to find a way to get to one of Rory or Scotty. It's just natural based on what we talked about earlier. So I think that's a different way to do it for sure.
I'm probably going to play 50 lineups this week. How many of those do you think that I should allocate to this method of PM guys day one? And hopefully that's an advantage.
Whatever you're comfortable with, I'd be fine with if you wanted to go like 30 of them that way.
So
and just leave the 40 open, or you could go 40-10.
So like 60% of my lineups I would allocate to that?
Yeah, that's like if you did 30 of your 50 lineups to 60%, exactly. So you're just kind of somewhere in that range. I know some people do it differently, but I'm always comfortable going up to that kind of number.
Okay. Do we want to build Ludwig as our best guy, Xander as our best guy, or do we want to try to build out the Scotty as the top, Rory as the top, and see what we do there?
I would just stay with what we were doing. Let's try, because people are looking at this weather now. Let's try and build a Rory PM lineup, because he's obviously out at 1 o'clock. So we can just start with Rory instead of going the 3 9K guys that we went to, and see what changes up with those 7K guys that you were talking about in the middle there, because they'll be a bit chalkier. Well, it'll be spread out again, but like you can't play Ben Griffin or any of the certain guys in that range that we were talking about earlier. But you could play guys like Adam Scott. You could play Fitz, I guess, is almost 12 o'clock. He's 11:45 a.m. You could play Corey Connors. You can play Sepp Straka, Wyndham Clark, Shane Lowry. There's a lot of ways you can go with this type of build.
So you can go
Maybe Shane Lowry.
You can go Rory, Lowry, English, Rogers, Wyndham, Clark, and then you have $9,500 left for Cantlay, who is a part of that wave.
All right, let's do that one.
So Rory, Cantlay, 10-8, 9-5, and then 8-2-8 for Lowry and Wyndham Clark. Then you have Harris English and Patrick Rogers. Like, those are the two that I'd be the most comfortable with of like the scrub players that are like Rose is out there. Rose has a great history at this course. Like, do you have any faith in Justin Rose?
He's cheap. He's definitely down there, but I don't know if you watch the Netflix special, maybe you'll get a little bit more faith for him. He's 6,100. He's featured in the full swing stuff, so maybe there'll be a little love, but yeah, at 6,100, I guess you could do worse. If you're playing afternoon stuff, he would definitely be there as well.
You into afternoon stuff?
Morning, evening, and afternoon, Pat, definitely.
No overnights though.
No, it's gotta get sleep at some point.
Yeah, I'm old now. I used to be into the overnight stuff. Can't do that anymore. I'm just asleep. It's a tough scene for me. Hoagie is like the one that's just after. So Hoagie is in the 7th to last pairing out. He's with Russell Henley. He led this tournament in strokes gained approach last year and missed like -20 in putting because it's Tom Hoagie. And that's what he's going to do. But he is so cheap. He's $6,100. Like, does that do anything for you? So let's enter that lineup. I like that one. I'm playing all these in the $10 18 max this week, the ones that I'm building on the show. So I'll re-import that one, and I'm going to take out Harris English and drop him down to Tom Hoagie. And that means I have room for improvement somewhere, probably in the Patrick Rogers spot. Gets me to $7,400. But is that anyone that we really even like? Si Woo is there, but I mean, we're still building up the PM.
He's in the morning. Right? He's in the morning. Yeah, I just knew price off top. So that is the one interesting thing is when you're going for that afternoon wave, if you are looking for the later tee times, you're not going to get like Corey Connors is 12:05, Matt Fitzpatrick 11:45, Adam Scott 11:35. These are all more mid-morning tee times, like hitting lunchtime versus kind of the later tee times. And again, it's a difference of an hour, so it's fine. But just mentioning that, it would flip it for a little bit when people are looking at it because Hoagie is 12:50, like he's almost 1 o'clock, right? So
you can use
what happens.
You can use
Rory
Denny.
Xander.
Denny fits in that lineup as well. Like, do you like Highsmith at all?
I think he'll be a little more popular than we expect, but he's fine. Yeah.
Really?
No, he's 6,200. So if it's not the same tournament. I hope people know that. But
are you sure?
Well, it's just a mention, but there is that thing that I always talk about when somebody wins and then goes down in price is much better, regardless of strength of field over a long sample size, long period of time, has been better than when somebody wins and goes up in price the next week. And it's not like an obvious factor. It's more of the strength of field changes it, but it has been a thing where those that win and then drop in price, regardless of how hard the course is, how tough the field is, they typically do better the week after a win at a lower price point.
So you could play this lineup, although I played it with Denny McCarthy and left $100 on the table.
How much is Denny this week?
73.
Yeah, he's about almost at 12 o'clock. So what do you get? Hoagie, Denny.
Hoagie and Denny with Rory, Cantlay, Lowry, and Wyndham Clark.
The Rory Lowry pairing, that's another full swing setup there. We know how good of buddies they are anyway, but it's a huge feature on there. When does Sepp go out?
Sepp goes out pretty late, actually. Sepp is out. He's the right before Hoagie. He's at 12:35.
I'm putting Sepp in that one, and you got Wyndham, right?
Yeah, I have Wyndham in there already, so I could take.
You could fit Sepp in with that $100. I kind of like it.
All right, yeah, we'll just mix it up a little bit and throw Straka in there. So, I mean, this worked out great for us at Pebble Beach. It was the one that I won all the money on. Was the all like Euro type lineup, which this basically is. Like you can just finagle it to. I mean, let's just take Rory out of this for a second. If you take Rory out of it, and then Xander is your top guy, and you get some extra money to play around with, like how would you smooth this out? We can turn Hoagie into Rose. They're the same price and just say, hey, European dude. I mean, he does have a great history at this course, so maybe he can figure it out a little bit from that front. Can I get Lowry up to Finau? I can't, but that means I could drop.
I think you probably keep Lowry in this build.
Yeah, well, we can get Straka into Lowry. And
Well, you can go with this. You can go, you can go Xander, Cantlay, Lowry, Straka, Wyndham, Rose.
But then I don't get to play Finau.
You don't need Finau. I mean, this fits what you were just talking about, though, and you can go Rose or Hoagie, but Rose kind of fits more that if you're building for like the grinders and that type of setup. It's a lot of pars in this lineup, but if those play, which they do at this tournament, usually that'd be the way.
So Xander, Cantlay, Clark, Lowry, Straka, Rose.
Yeah. And you've got 3 8Ks, which most won't have. And then when you're using a super cheap 6K guy, most will automatically have Rory or Scotty, or majority, I should say, will have that. And you've got Xander, Cantlay, the two buds.
So I think this works for me in terms of the PM. We don't need to continue to harp down and continue to build those ones out. But I do think out of the 50 lineups, I'll play in either the $6 or the $5, whatever it is that I choose to play this week, depending on what time I go fill out my lineups and see what's still available to me, is usually how that works out. But I think I'll probably allocate 20% or 20 of the 50 lineups to this sort of build. And then, because I'm not convinced this is necessarily the path, but I think it's just a good angle to get different with good players anyway.
That's what I can't stress that enough. People get so hung up on this. If the weather's not in our favor, it's still awesome, because here's the deal. 40% Scheffler. Let's say it's 35 and you're like, oh, he actually came in lower. Fine. Ludwig, morning tee time. Who else? Fleetwood, very early morning tee time. Who else is popular down here? I'm just trying to go through the list of other guys. If Hovland does get any ownership, like it's looking like he could, that's a possibility. Pendrith, if he gets steamed. The 7Ks doesn't have a ton of ownership anyway, Pat, but yes, that's kind of the point. People are going to say, oh, you were so wrong about the weather. It's not a weather edge necessarily, but there's an angle of getting naturally different lineups where you're avoiding the chalk and telling a story, and then you hope the weather goes in your favor. What if the weather goes in your favor on Sunday because you built it out that way? And that's a butterfly effect. You're not building for that. I'm talking about if that happens, though, this is how you can get builds that are different and find your way up the board and be able to move off that chalk without even focusing on the weather at all. That's the point.
Let me give you my just guys that I like this week that I feel good about lineup. Scheffler, okay. Ludwig. No, this isn't even going to work. Scheffler is too expensive is the problem. Let's turn Scheffler into Morikawa.
All right.
Morikawa, Ludwig, Pendrith, Akshay, Mav. We haven't brought up Mav yet, but I actually really like Mav. I don't have enough money for players anymore. That's unfortunate.
That's your issue.
Unfortunately, the players I like this week are too expensive.
You'd have to move. You can move off of Pendrith or Akshay if you want to stick with Mav, or you could just move Mav down.
Yeah, I would have $7,300 if I just get rid of Mav. I'm trying to think here. Who do we use?
Dietrich Siwoo?
I mean, I used that earlier. I do like that combo of Dietrich Siwoo. Dietrich does seem like a guy who has an 86 in him this week, though.
The 86 is not gonna
not gonna fight. You don't want that guy in showdown. That'd be bad.
Yes.
Dietrich, do you like the combo of Dietrich and Siwoo? So if that's a 2v2, let's say, do you like that more than, let's say,
what about Denny Rye?
Denny Rye would be one, or you could go a bit lower and go like Nick Taylor. If you put in Nick Taylor, does that get you like Bobby Mack?
Not quite.
You get to
Tom
7.
Kim.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can.
You could play Harris English with
Lowry or Clark.
With Clark.
Yeah. Like, do you like that 2v2 better? Do you like Harris English and Clark, or do you like the theoretical combo of Dietrich and Siwoo, like that 74-72? It could be Billy Horschel and Siwoo or whatever.
Siwoo is going to play amazing this week. You know why? Because the Players is next week. So we got to get Siwoo fired up this week, and then everyone on him next week at Super Chalk. That's what's going to happen here.
Siwoo top 10 bet. I have to write that one down. Oh yeah. Oh, he gained 48 strokes on approach this week. He's definitely going to win the Players miscut. Yes,
you nailed it. That's how this works. After a long time of playing, that's what you'll find out. So you got to think about that.
So yeah. So Siwoo, would it be Dietrich for you then? I mean, that just uses all of our money. We don't have to do that. You could go like, do you like Siwoo better than Thigala?
Yeah, I think I like Siwoo better than Thigala. I guess what I was trying to think of an answer there for you was if we get any flop lag on Davis Thompson over a guy like Dietrich, who obviously just looks good on paper, but could easily shoot an 86, like you said. So that's how I was thinking of it. If you went with, I don't know if you can get to it another way, but yeah, that's what I would do. I like Siwoo Davis Thompson or Siwoo Dietrich is what I like there.
Yeah, I used Davis Thompson missing the cut last week, which is really bizarre to me. It could be, and we've seen this happen to guys. Like, you can just take a look at his results; they weren't all that good. And then he had the Genesis basically won on Saturday, and then he went into a pit of despair going into the back nine, and he hasn't been good since. We see this happen with dudes, right? Where they have their chance, they blow up, and they're Keith Mitchell in the swing season. I think is the biggest one I've ever seen of this happening. He missed like those 2 short putts at Sanderson Farms, and he had the tournament won, and he ended up coming in 3rd because he just missed easy shots. And then he miscut the rest of the swing season, and I don't think he broke 70.
Yeah, that happens. Like you said, that's the issue you got to look out for. But at low to no ownership, that's all I'm thinking about on some of these guys.
Siwoo Davis Thompson, then. Yeah. I mean, maybe I'll take Davis Thompson. I kind of scared myself on him right now. Do you like Horschel?
Dietrich was fine. Who you just had there.
Yeah, Dietrich's fine, but I like Grazerman's there, Horschel's there, Spawn is there. Not big on Spawn. I could see Grazerman playing well. I don't, outside of like putting really well all the time, I don't know what his like big skill set is.
Yeah, the question is more if people, I don't know what they'll do with him, right? Like, he's still been playing pretty good. He just got 11th, 24th before that. People were playing him even in the field where he was like super overpriced at 9,200. He still ended up getting almost 20% ownership. So I just wonder what that does when he's down to 7,100, how people view him versus the others around him there.
So let's talk about some of these guys in the mid sevens that we haven't brought up. Min Woo, Adam Scott, Ben Griffin, Michael Kim, Matt Fitzpatrick, Jason Day, Corey Connors, Tom Kim, and hell, we can even throw Pendrith, Akshay, and Bobby Mack into that mix as well. They haven't really come up at all. It's a bit of a dead zone, although the ownership will tell you that people are playing Ben Griffin and Adam Scott and Michael Kim. I just can't believe that to be true.
It's just going to be like it feels like it's going to be at least the week we had recently when EVR was the only guy out of the 7K range in double digits, and he was only 11 or 12% at $7,500. And everybody else was 7 to 10%. That's what I see happening here. It looks like all these guys, 80, whatever, Shane Lowry's going to get ownership. So 8,200 and above are going to be the guys that get the double digit ownership. And then there'll be a couple guys, if that, in the 7s that get the ownership down here.
So other than that, there's the other dead zone. So we talked about Wyndham Clark and Shane Lowry. I do expect both of those guys to get some ownership, but this entire range just above them is, again, Zalatoris was a click for me. McNeely's a click for me. I like Henley. It's just the way that we are constructing lineups, it's very hard to get to any of these guys. You got Victor, Keegan, Berger, haven't said their names, Sungjae, Burns, Fleetwood, Finau. People will play Fleetwood. And then you have Hideki at 93. I worry about Hideki's driving because since he won, he's spraying the ball everywhere, which is not what you want to do here. But he's also Hideki at the same time. Like, you're also saying that, hey, this is one of the 10 best players in the world. He'll just get it together this week and he'll be fine. That's when I want to use him, when no one is using him.
Yeah, that's the part with him that you sort of keep in top of mind. He is 9,300 here, so someone to look at. But back to your take that you had just before that I wanted to hit on quick was the Henley, McNeely, Zal are all sort of going overlooked completely. And you met, like, that's the type of build that's going to be different this week. If you have 3 8K guys, we looked at a little bit earlier, you can still easily stack in a Hideki, JT, Cantlay, Morikawa. Like, you can still move on that one and have over 7K left. So that's the type of build that it's a dead zone, to your point. Of course, you just go and plug in Harris English right away. But
well, I mean, is there a reason? Let's say I do like Harris English the best of that crew down there, which I do. Why wouldn't I be able to use them in this lineup?
Yeah, you can do whatever you want. My point was it breaks up everything we were just looking like. That's the point. If you're going to go to 3 8K guys to get different and then just go slam in the auto 6K guy, that's what changes it up. So, that's
all right. I'll put in Harman. I'll put in Harman then, and then I'll play Akshay with him.
I was looking at dead zones and saying how you could build like a version of that within here. Like you were mentioning Decky, and it could be your guy Cantlay just going up slightly, who no one's really on and kind of fits this. My point was, if you had like Decky or Cantlay in there, you don't even have to go to the 6s still, but you also have 3 8Ks that nobody has. So that's like a really unique build for this week that others won't get to. That look at the options of what you have. You've got really good players in there. I would still be trying to get a 9K guy above them. So you've got Decky in there now. I had Cantlay, but I'll put Decky. You now go right back to the Siwoo Dietrich situation. Like that's a pretty good lineup, Pat, when you're looking at it. You know, if Decky comes through, if he does, you can flip one guy around to whoever you want. You can move Zal to
I moved Decky to Ludwig.
Right. So what does that change for you? Okay, you got it that way.
Yeah, it gives us 7,000 on the dot to play with. And then I can go like Harmon Dietrich if I wanted to. Or
I was gonna go like, yeah, I don't know who else it would be though. 70. Who else was there? Somebody else at 76 that we like? Ben Griffin, you said?
I don't like. I mean, I'd rather play my guy Michael Kim than Ben Griffin.
So yeah, your guy Michael Kim. You can play like I had Cantlay, McNeely, Henley, Lowry, and you can still get Dietrich and Michael Kim. And it projects well, and it's completely different than what others would have, and you're not on all the exact same plays. But just goes to show, like those dead zones that you talk about, you get to some of the guys in there, you're getting good options. People just can't get to them because they're building stars and scrubs or for a different style of tournament altogether. So that's the setup that I like.
Yeah, we can go Straka, Henley, McNeely, Zalatoris, Berger, and then Denny McCarthy. There's your lineup.
Zalatoris, Berger.
This lineup wins when Scotty has a stroke on the 71st hole and can't finish.
That's the challenge with my original point I made earlier. When it's like the Scotty Price thing. Yes, we all have the same thing. We know this is unique and different because it uses 8K guys. It's, you know, completely balanced, but you're not going to feel good about this when it comes to win equity and the odds and everything like that, because Scotty's not in it. Rory's not in it. No anybody from up top, right? You're missing all of those guys. That is a huge part of the win equity for this tournament that you're going to require. You know, feels like 9 times out of 10, but it's not quite 90% up top. So it just feels that way when Scotty's in there at 3-1. That's all.
For absolutely. And I even saw someone in the chat put in that you can play Scotty to win Rory top 20 for 4-1. At that point, I think I would rather just bet Scotty at plus 350. Like
don't bring the other point into it. The other spot that you need out of Rory.
Yeah. And it's a lot. You can do those on Underdog as well. If you use the sliders, you can be like Scotty top 5, Rory top 10, and put those two together if you want to on Underdog. I think people always forget that you can do that. Code Mayo and Underdog, by the way. All right. Any other lineups that you'd want to build before we start getting to some questions? If you have questions, dump them into the live chat right now, and Tambo and I will talk about them.
Yeah, I guess the only other one we didn't really, if you wanted to, we did a couple. I guess we did Xander with Cantlay, but yeah, what's your overall opinion on Xander? Because I think using him this week is good for DFS, not necessarily for the other stuff, but definitely going to be taking some shots this week in DFS at 10-1 and hope that he's okay. Or maybe it's a T5 and Rory and Scotty are behind him and it matters that way. I don't know, but it's unlikely, but possible. And at 10-1, I'm definitely going to be taking some shots. He's squeezed between Scotty Rory above him and Ludwig and Morikawa below him.
Don't mind it. I guess my only pushback would be is I like Morikawa more, and I see them right around the same type of ownership.
So just play them both together.
Or just start with Morikawa, and then you end up with just more money in your lineup.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said to use Xander this week. It's just what you're comfortable with. If you're not, that was why you answered my question without exactly responding to it. Like what I was saying is what you kind of went to. If you don't like Xander and dropping down, because now you're like, oh, he not only has to be the best of that bunch, but I don't love it. You could play Xander and then get a protection piece in there, whether it's Morikawa or Ludwig or something like that. And what if you just go Rory Xander? You still have almost 7,300 left.
You could most definitely do that. I think we built a similar lineup to that already. The 4 guys above $9,000 who seem to be drawing very little interest. Not to say that they're a 1% player. They're like 10% players. Maybe they'll be 6% because everyone just stays away from them. It's Xander, Morikawa, Finau, and Burns. Those are the 4 that seem to be well below everyone else, at least what I'm seeing.
Yeah, Finau and Burns just can't get ownership where they're priced at. That's the tricky end with the guys around them.
And I like Finau. I want to figure out a way to jam in Finau somewhere.
Let me see here. Finau. He would fit into our afternoon builds too.
Yeah. Like that's probably where I'll get my Finau exposures when I build all those lineups out and just randomly generate them, that he'll pop up in 35% of them. So I'll end up with 7 of 20 lineups with Finau in them of that bunch. So that's probably where I'll get my Finau stuff. Get my Finau fix.
Finau fix. I like that one. If you were playing, if you think Finau has a good week, what type of play, like what other players are you thinking that are going to come along with him? Like if it's a Finau type week, who are the other guys that you're seeing coming along? And we could look at like a skill build with him.
It's not necessarily a skill build with Finau. I feel like just good, harder course player, good in the thicker rough. Just overall, I like.
Yeah, who are those guys for you? That's what I'm saying.
Cantlay.
Yeah. So Cantlay,
Finau, Lowry.
Okay. What else? Name some of the cheaper guys. I'll get the bill.
That's the problem. Who are the cheaper guys?
Well, you said English, right?
English, yeah. Can't use English. Worst player in the field. You told me that.
No, it's a different argument. We're good. What else? Who else do you got now? It doesn't matter where at. What other guys do you think fit this mold?
We could probably go Lowry and, well, if you use Fleetwood, you get to Siwoo. But Thigala is probably, you know what? Denny's probably the answer to that.
You think Denny's the answer?
Might be Thigala or Denny, like just skill-wise. I know that those two skills are completely opposite from each other, but they tend to do well at, the thicker rough. Like Denny does really well at long courses for some reason. Like he plays well at US Opens from time to time.
Who was the other guy you said before that? There was somebody else. There was somebody in the 8Ks that you liked also.
Keegan?
Was it Keegan?
Berger? Zalatoris?
Zal, you definitely liked. Let me see what does Zal do for this lineup?
So we throw in Zal and you get to 79. Oh, you get Akshay. That I can do.
Akshay?
Lowry, English, Finau, Cantlay, Zalatoris, and Akshay. You could get up to Tom Kim or Pendrith if you wanted to as well.
Which one do we got here? I'm just trying to see. Neither of those. I was trying to see if we had one that fit both molds, but I don't have it. So I can't do it with Zal.
So launch Zal.
Who was the other guy up to? Henley or McNeely? Did we talk about those two?
We did, and we can throw.
Henley?
I mean, that does this exactly the same thing. You go McNeely, Akshay.
Yeah. Would you like? Okay, then that answers my question. Do you out of Fitzpatrick or Connors? What do you like better?
I looked at Connors this morning when I was doing some more research, and just I don't know what's wrong with him. Like he historically has played really well at this course too, which is something to consider. But he's putting well for the first time ever, it seems, and he can't drive and can't hit his irons to the level where he needs to hit them to overcome his lack of everything else.
So if you went with Fitz and just played into the Lowrys, the Englishes, the type of grinder setup there, you could land on Henley. You'd be able to get Fitz and Henley and just hope they grind it out for you over the weekend.
I mean, Fitz has been bad this year. He's even bad on TGL, and that's hard to do.
Just ask Kisner.
Ask Homa.
Yeah. What else? What about, man? I think if there was another.
I like the 2v2 of McNeely and Akshay better than Henley and Fitzpatrick. Although I bet McNeely to win, so obviously I like him more. But a lot of that was odds induced that he was 10 points more than Henley. I rate them around the same. Although I think top end skill wise, if McNeely plays well, he could win this tournament. Where Henley feels like he would hold on to win, whereas I feel like McNeely can go out and win the tournament.
Plus, we already have Henley in the lineup. He's 6,600 and he's named Harris English. Just an easy, cheap, safe version that's, you get for 66. That's when I like using English. If he becomes your Russell Henley, and I like your call. McNeely has way more upside, I think. And then also Bhatia is risky, but he's got that option. And he's the only guy in that lineup that plays in the Thursday morning wind. And we already talked about him being able to find his way through that. So it's kind of a unique lineup there. If you go Cantlay, Finau, McNeely, Lowry, Bhatia, English. That's a way to get different within that type of build. So, yeah, I like that one.
All right. Let's get to some questions from the chat. Thank you all for sticking around. Smash a like while you're here as well. Sub to Mayo Media Network and code Mayo at Underdog right now to figure it out. This guy's asking for Puerto Rico builds. That ain't happening.
Yeah, thank you.
There's a top prize of $50 for one of the tournaments? Great.
It's $10K to first and $4 for 10th. So, yeah, it's just I threw my $100 to donate. But I can't give full support until they give us better stuff there. But one thing I would say is your boy, Rico Hoey, we'll say one quick thing, is going to be very owned. He's $8,500.
He should be very owned. Why wouldn't he be very owned?
Yeah, they priced him like that. So it makes sense.
So Marshall asks us for our thoughts on Tony Finau. I think we just gave them. I like Finau a lot this week.
Yeah. It's a tough click for most to get to because he's $9,200. That's
it feels even worse because of what is it? Fleetwood is $100 less. Hideki's $100 more. I think that everyone would just feel better with those two guys over Finau. Just, my gut says, and the recent trend line show, Finau's playing a little bit better, and he might be healthy again, which would be huge for him. Now watch him miss 85-foot putts.
Would you rather Finau or Hideki?
Finau.
Yeah, that's the tricky, right? It's only $200 more than Finau to get JT.
I know.
Like this is, Fleetwood's 91 and people love him. I'm sure that one will backfire because Fleetwood getting love is always a thing and then doesn't work out. But the range that he's in, it makes it really tricky for Finau and Burns, who you mentioned. Even Sungjae might get a little lower ownership this week than we're used to, but always get some. So it's tough to say.
Hermit Money says they need to get rid of the salary cap so people can play their favorite players. Now you can do that. If you just go on to Underdog, you can just do the drafts and just draft your favorite players at all times.
Yes. And even still, like some weeks, if you don't need the salary and go a different way, you can almost just do it. But if you were just playing Scotty, Rory, Xander, I mean, those aren't going to work out for you either. I'll give you a heads up because it works a little differently. And those, you see plenty of weeks where guys bust up top. So if you could just play the top 6 every week, it wouldn't be as fun anymore. And it wouldn't always work out either.
Jordan asks if we have talked about the weather, and we did. We talked about the weather. It was the very first thing we talked about on the show. So 2 minutes in is when we break down each day of the weather and how to construct lineups, and we actually did the builds during the build part of this, and I don't see any more questions. And I'll give people 30 more seconds to put in their questions if they have any. If not, we've talked about, I think, most of the angles that people want to get to here. And I will remind everyone to smash the like and sub to the channel. Congrats again to @TheBronze. So email in mayomediainc@gmail.com to claim your prize of a free year of Fantasy National, or @the PME on Twitter. I'll get in touch with you that way and get you hooked up. No need to apologize, Jordan. Listen, it wasn't a bad question. It wasn't a stupid question. Questions that are a bit out of date, I can refer you back using the time codes. If it's a stupid question, that's when I get mad. And when was the last time I got mad, Tambo? Only the last time that we did the show.
2 weeks ago. Yeah, it's been 2 weeks, and people forget that it's not that you didn't do it last week. You just didn't have a show last week, but 2 weeks ago was the last time.
And this guy says, "Are you having a good week?" Now that's a fucking stupid question. That's not what we're here for. I can end the goddamn fucking show if I'm going to take your fucking bullshit questions like this. Fuck off.
You said this guy, and it was Jordan again. That's the best part.
Killing me out here. Anyway, what's going on at Ship It Nation this week?
We got lots. While you were away, we did partner with SaberSim, so new setup over there. If you guys want to check it out, go to shipitnation.com/join. You can check out all the options now with our partnership with SaberSim, where you can tie it in there with the other sports going on. Still working myself on the mastermind project over at Ship It Nation. So if you are wanting to learn behind the scenes, my second course, the Mind Map 2, just came out, and you can use promo code Mayo over there to get a discount as well. But lots of good stuff, Pat, right now with everything we've got going on. Ship It Nation is the time to join. Get in now.
Tim asks, before we go, I believe he had a typo or he's really coming at us. He says, "You gays trust Hovland?" Going back to his old putter and Nike shoes. So we're either the old gays or he meant guys. That I'm not sure of, Tambo.
The A and the U are very far apart on the
I know.
keyboards.
It feels like an intentional choice.
It feels like Jeff Feinberg's burner.
It's Jeff Feinberg's burner. That is how Jeff talks.
You guys trust Alvin? I don't know. I like that he added his old Nike shoes because that is he can't just flip his putter back. He's got to change something else too. So it makes perfect sense. And now somebody else jumped in and said thoughts on Big D Vic. So lots of people looking for the Big D out there, Big Victor.
Well, is that why Tim thought as gays that we would have like very good insight to Big D Vic?
Possibly, but then he corrected it to guys. So he's saying somehow it was a typo to go from the very far left of your keyboard 7 or 8 keys over to and up a line. So it's tough to imagine.
I don't like Victor this week. I just can't do it. There's too many guys around him that I like, both on the betting board, DraftKings board, whatever it might be. Until I see some elite ball striking from him, the rest of his game is too god awful to do anything with. It's a lot like Connor's in that way, strangely enough. Like if they're not doing, Morikawa is kind of the same way too, although you always feel like he lingers around the top enough, and he's gotten so much better around the greens and putting over the past 18 months that he can keep himself in tournaments, that he's going to go like full Siwoo on us one of these weeks where it's like, oh, He's making all of his putts and he can chip. And then he went back to classic Morikawa irons and gained 10 for a week instead of just 4. With Victor, like if he's not adding up 10 strokes between ball striking, like he's not going to win or like if he only has 4 between them, like let's say 2 off the tee and 2 on approach, the rest of his game sucks too much to do anything with.
I did build a lineup quickly while you said that, just because you reminded me of something we usually do and we didn't do. They're way too cheap, guys, and they'll all pop on the exact same week, which will never happen. But if you wanted to build it, it would be Xander, because the injury is priced down to 10-1.
Vic.
Hideki 93 is obviously low for Hideki. It's tough to say. Victor is obviously in there.
Cam Young
is obviously in there. And then it rounds out with Siwoo, who you mentioned, like just go Siwoo one week and all of a sudden get the job done. And that lands you on Tom Kim, who is crushing it at TGL, but not at PGA right now. But still, he's definitely a guy that people had higher on the radar over time. And you could probably swap Siwoo and Tom Kim to to Max Homa.
Oh,
and that would get you to Sam Burns, another version of that would fit.
I mean,
there you go, Pat. We're locked and loaded. These are the skill lineups of the guys that should be way better than they are, but probably won't do anything.
I hear that Max Homa is going to star in the remake, in the Sean Penn role in Dead Man Walking.
He might have to move careers. Yes, that might be correct. But he's still doing pretty good, I think, from all those wins he got.
Paul.
Tambo kind of just revealed that he doesn't watch TGL when he said that Tom Kim is crushing it.
That's true.
TGL. First of all, I don't watch it. And second of all, I watched the clips on X, and it's the joke of, I think Baroff put the funniest one out, said, nobody, and going crazy, and then said Tom Kim at TGL. The guy's acting like he won the Masters for real. It's almost worse than the Taylor Gooch Ryder Cup comments, going that insane over simulator golf. Chill out, Tom.
But Tom missed the shot, though.
I saw yesterday was the Swaggy P. Yes,
it was, but he missed it. Yeah,
I know. That's the Swaggy P. He shoots it, turns around, and it rattles the rim when he thinks he has it. Tom Kim did that too. Yes, I see it all. I see the highlights. The timeline does not stop. It's like, man, the ratings even, Pat, they're down. Everyone's not giving credit to that anymore because it beat women's hockey last year. So it must still be good. Yeah, it's good for ESPN to get a better version on there. That doesn't make it a successful venture. That's the thing.
I think it has been a pretty successful venture, honestly.
I don't think anybody would agree, except the people that get paid to say it.
I mean, I do get paid to say it, but if you had told me, like, what will be like the average ratings for the year, like 500K? That's more than I thought they would get.
Yeah, but that's overly boosted by the first 2 weeks, which was set up with an absolute spraying money campaign of getting every influencer in the world there, paying to get the seats filled, and then Tiger lined up for week 2. That was awesome marketing. That's where you spend your marketing budget. That makes sense to hold back Tiger for week 2. It has been completely off the rails and downhill since then when people would have you think that it's crushing.
I think that's somewhat disingenuous because they were only playing one match per week for the first few weeks, and those ratings were all pretty high. There was one that was way down, but in week 4, it went back up. But then they started having 4 matches a week. So obviously it was going to be diluted down because, as you mentioned, people don't know when it's on. It changed days, and then you're running out 4 matches instead of just the 1. So it became like less of an event. So obviously it's going to go down over that time. It's just you have to keep people there for longer, which is just very difficult to do. Like their rating,
I think the other day was 160K tuned in or something.
For which one?
The afternoon match of Monday or Tuesday, whatever it was this week.
Well, I mean, that at that point, I'd be curious to see what would normally be in that time slot and what would that draw in terms of.
You're
ratings.
The TV guy, though. You know this stuff very well, so I'm with you on this. I want to get your take. So, how is that relevant? To me, that's good for ESPN. ESPN loves that they're getting a show doing 160 when, like I said, women's hockey did 40K the year before. That's awesome for them. How does that make TGL successful? They need to do, their owners or their people that built it, we're talking about needing 500K per show. Like they basically need it to be much bigger for their investment. It doesn't make it good because it's beating last year's shitty event that was at the same time slot. That'd be easy to get better ratings on, to target and cherry pick all those spots.
Well, I mean, in terms of ad buys, that's what's basically the most important thing. That's how you're going to generate all your revenue. And when you think about the time slots, there's only so much expectation that goes in. Like, you're not expecting 1 million people to watch at 3:00 in the afternoon on ESPN. Nothing does that number. Like,
That's what I'm saying. ESPN wants those ad buys.
Yeah, but I mean, TGL knows that as well at the same time. Like, they need what they need to do is like have a featured match, a standalone match. I think they've tried that on Tuesday nights. I don't know if they want to make Tuesday night their thing, Monday night their thing, whatever it might be. They need to designate like the prime time night where there's one match. That's a featured match. That's what you sell, and that's what you kind of base the interest and gauge it off of. Because when you run out 3 matches in an afternoon at 2:00, 4:00, and 7:00, like, how much do you really expect to get?
I just think the same thing, and people always shit on me for this because I think I'm just hating on it. It's not even just that. I think you could fix it easily. I think you make it Tuesday nights. You make it the UFC on Saturdays of Tuesday nights. You have a main event. You get everything in there. UFC had this lull too. Paul's over there. He knows this. Everyone used to watch UFC when it was once a month with a big time event, and they'd pay for it. Then they did have a rut, which they've now fixed, where it was like, man, I'm not paying for this every single weekend for these shitty ass events that they're just trying to stack me up. If they just put this Tuesday night, made it much shorter, 60 to 90 minutes if they could, because the thing about fighting, it goes on longer, but it's also fights. They end quickly. This is like, if it draws out too long, it's not good. And then they really need to incorporate, again, helping with live would be great. But if they're not going to get live golfers in there to make it exciting, not just live versus PGA, but those personalities, then they need to bring YouTube personalities and really get that market solved and have the Grant Horvats and these guys. You can fix it. It's not that I'm against it. I'm saying right now, I think it's only for a very niche audience, and that's the case. You could widen the audience, make it more valuable, and solidify it. Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern, X amount of events, main event every week. Fix the names around, because it's not like PGA Tour events where some pick the signatures only and not this. Get them all dialed and moved around. They can pick their spots, and then get your undercard matchups there and get some YouTube golfers and some actual personalities. Celine Dion ain't moving the needle. I don't give a shit. My heart will go on, and I will not be watching TGL at all right now when it's like this.
Problem with the YouTube stuff is, like, how do you incorporate them in? Do they play each other? Because if you put them,
pros versus Joes is way more enticing than watching Morikawa slam it into a match.
It is, but that only, like, there's very little upside for the YouTube guys in that. Because what if they go out there and get embarrassed by pros?
They're not pros. They're not playing on the tour. They're not trying to be on tour.
No, but like, part of their thing is like, oh, I'm challenging this guy in this like edited YouTube video. Now I'm live on the simulator. I just lost to Max Homa, who sucks, by 12 strokes.
I came on this show with you, a professional, and got embarrassed when I fucked up myself and couldn't get a list right. And now I'm on the show with you weekly. It's like, get better, figure it out. I don't know. I think it would be way more view. You're going back to the original points though of views and tuning in and all that. They can really fix it to that way, because another thing I think we've learned, it's just my 2 cents, but I don't think there's enough opportunity for the PGA Pro personality to come out. You do get a few scenes per episode. You get a few little Kisner shanks it and things like that. And again, I'm seeing the highlights and whatnot, but you don't get enough of it. So if that's going to be the case, I don't think you're going to be able to build that in too much. You need to build more personality just naturally in via the people you bring on. And it just happens to be that the YouTube guys and girls have a little bit of action right now when it comes to that stuff. So just my thoughts, but I think it's fixable for sure.
I like it. I mean, it's background noise is what it is, and is almost kind of meant to be. And we did talk on Monday that would TGL be better if it was a pre-packaged show, that you cut out all the crappy parts, showed all the shots, but made it an hour. And I agree that it would be, but they haven't quite embraced gambling yet, but that would take the entire gambling angle off the board.
Yes, that'd be the challenge. They have to decide on that as well. But feels like if they stick with the gambling angle, it could be better as well and mix it in. And that would be where you can get more personalities and whatnot brought into it. And they'd want to be involved. If it's going to be a bigger production like that, and they're going to put time and money into it anyway, that to me makes a lot more sense from a business perspective, being able to run it at that angle and then finding a way to make that work. But they're missing on some of the very basics right now. And the good news is they're brand new. They have tons of time to fix it. It's everything we said about Live when it first came out, not on anything to do with Live, on they're a new operation. They have the money. They should be able to fix it. Whether or not they do or will, or what people believe is quote unquote fixed, I just think that's my 2 cents on how they could fix a lot of it and get them what they're looking for. But not even having a generic time slot that's standalone is a big issue right now, just out of the gates. Easy fix, in my opinion.
100%. Knowing when stuff is on is half the battle, and being able to tune in at that time and know that it's going to be there. I mean, if you have a podcast and you don't do that, that's real problems. And no one's ever going to remember to watch your show or listen to it at any time, because they will just simply forget and they will move on. Hence why when I go on vacation, Tambo, that the shows still run. That's right. Consistency is key, man. It's all the stuff the cliche stuff in business, life, entrepreneurship, anything like that. You just got to put in the hard work. It is true. That part of the hard work is consistency, showing up in, passionate every single week, same time, so people can get to loving it and showing up to watch it and support you. So that's a key factor. And again, they're probably going to change it. So good on them. But I just think right now, I would say there's definitely some big misses that they got to work on for even the niche lovers of it. That's my point. Oh, 100%. I think at the end of that, you can only change so much in season. That you run out your pro list, like what did people like? What didn't people like? And then season 2 can just be fixing everything that no one liked and incorporating new
or majority of it. Just show the energy of putting it towards that. Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. All right, that'll do it on the Pat Mayo Experience. I'll be back tomorrow. Me, Cam, and Rob. Best of part 2. People loved part 1. It was pretty hilarious. Shout out to Jared for putting that together. We got part 2 coming out tomorrow, so please tune into that. Then Friday, Players Week starts. Me, Byron, Cam, first look, and we'll be doing a draft on Underdog for major season as well. So get code Mayo to get that deposit bonus. Use code Mayo to get that deposit bonus and get yourself those bonus funds to draft with. That's what I do for mine. That's why I still have some of the bonus funds left over to continue to fire from last year for all of this stuff. And then Saturday and/or Sunday, I will have the research show out. And then boom, we got a full week of shows. We got me and Jeff and Cust on Monday for Players Picks, Best Bets, Golf Players Championship on Tuesday. And then Tambo, you'll be joining me in studio next week for the Players?
Yes, sir. We'll be here.
There we go. Maybe we don't need to. I feel like we still have our same rapport, even though you're at home.
It's because we fixed it now, so I can see you all the time. So I can react and see how he wants to chime in and try and not do too much. But I'm good either way. And next week, maybe we do in studio just for the majors. We can set it up that way and keep it rolling and see what comes up of it. We'll probably have a lot more questions too when it gets to these major weeks, as more people show up ready to roll big contests across the board. For sure. And just hold me to this. Whatever I think are good plays at the Players Championship, just tell me to X those guys out of the field and do the opposite. I lose so much money at the Players every single year on DraftKings. I don't think I've ever even returned a cent. I think I just get wiped off every year. Yeah, we'll work on that when we do our builds for next week. We'll look at some of those builds as well. We've got better at sort of, like you said, picking those dead spots and finding different builds that are unique roster constructions within them. So hopefully we can keep it rolling. We've had a pretty good season so far overall between you and I, and just what we've been going through on the show. It just finding those angles and then attacking them has to go your way. But I think we're going to get back on track here starting this week. I mean, I looked at the personal tracker I do for betting. I'm down big betting. And I looked at my DraftKings. I'm up $23,000 on DraftKings this year. So that's good. That's a nice number. Yeah. I mean, I only play $700 a week. So it's going to take me a while to get that money back. Yeah, you'll be fine. And then we win again this week, you'll be up even more. Now, see, that'll be perfect. I am going to do a cash giveaway and maybe an equipment giveaway next week as well. If you want to get out in front of that, sub to the channel. That would be very helpful. But leave a rating and review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And that way, you will get yourself into a draw for some bucks, which I assume that everyone would want. Who doesn't want free money? That will take you less than 10 seconds to do. And if you do both, you get in the draw twice. And if you've already done it, I would say just pump your name back to the top of the list to make sure that I see it. And fresh reviews always help out too. All right. You can follow Tambo on Twitter at Totag and Tambo. You can follow me at the PME. I'll post my cheat sheet up there tonight and along in the Mayo Media Substack as well. So please go sub to that too. I'm Pat Mayo. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.